excuse the mess that's behind me. I'm actually kind of in the middle of a move. I moved tomorrow, so I had to record this intro. So that way this could release on time. I'm not sure when I'm gonna get internet at my new place, so I wanted to again make sure that I got all this settled prior to my move. That way, you guys could have your new video here for today. So without further ado, guys, enjoy my conversation with Gustavo Mendoza, one of the Reality of Wrestling originals, and quite frankly, somebody that I very much look up to, as we discuss Living Dangerously, Rob Van Dam versus Jerry Lynn for the ECW World Television Championship. Welcome to another episode of the Missed Retrospective. As we're starting to get more common with these, I'm starting to learn a lot about professional wrestling that I didn't know previously. And quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I have a guest here with me today who he knows this already. I've told him several times, but I'm going to say it because it's in recording. Therefore, it's always going to be there. It's always going to be for everybody's ears because these episodes are evergreen. I've got Gustavo Mendoza here with me, one of my idols here from Reality of Wrestling. And we're going to get into that more in the podcast and everything. But Gustavo, thank you so much for taking the time to come do this here with me. We're actually recording here at the Tech Link over in Dixon, which is kind of cool because if you guys have never been to one of these places, it is a content creator's dream. I'll make sure to leave some information for them in the descriptions for you guys. That way you guys can check them out. And if you have content creator dreams, definitely go check them out. It's not sponsored, by the way. I genuinely just want to shout out to them because they did me an incredible solid here today. But without further ado, Gustavo, how you doing, dude?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me. This is great. This place rules.
Yeah, literally, like we're in a soundproof room right now, which is kind of insane. I've recorded these episodes at Reality of Wrestling twice, and then I went to somebody's house to record another one. So I was like, we'll figure this one out somewhere along the way. But I think this is probably going to be my home area until I can actually find a studio because this is actually insane.
Yeah, this place is amazing.
Alrighty, so Gustavo, for those of people listening that may not be familiar with who you are, what you've done in professional wrestling, why don't you give people a bit of a rundown of what you've done previously in professional wrestling, so they can kind of get your scope of what you know.
Sure. I am Gustavo Mendoza. I used to wrestle for Reality of Wrestling under Booker T. Trained there in 2006, and I've been wrestling for him for about 10 years or so. Back when the promotion was known as Pro Wrestling Alliance, and then it became Reality of Wrestling about halfway through that run. And yeah, I was a soldier for him for about maybe 10 years or so, and now I'm working in the creative office as of late, maybe the last couple of months, maybe the last year or so. So I'm a Reality of Wrestling guy through and through.
Hell yeah. So also, you forgot to mention the first ever Row of Fame recipient.
Oh, right. Yeah. I do forget that detail. Yeah, that is true. I am the first Row of Fame.
And I think, honestly, the reason I bring that up is because it just truly speaks of the amount of trust that Booker has in you, not only as a wrestler, but to be able to come back and now produce matches, which, again, for those of you guys that don't know, sometimes people need a little bit of extra help putting matches together. And the little intricacies that we don't really think about as fans, the producers can really bring a different, like a spotlight to something. It's like, hey, maybe we do this a little bit differently. It completely changes the entire scope of how a moment can be perceived or be performed, if you will.
Right. Yeah. It's like any writer who turns in a piece of work. Sometimes you need somebody to proofread it and just to kind of like make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and whatnot. And even then, I don't even know if my role in Reality Wrestling is even that advanced. I'm more of I call myself a consultant, really more. I'm not like an agent. I feel I'll help out wherever if somebody wants me to, but it's more of more of an idea guy. Here and there, I'll pitch something, and it'll either stick or it won't, and that's okay. So yeah, I'll call myself a consultant.
Consultant.
Yeah,
all right, we'll stick with that.
Yeah.
So I have the road consultant, ladies and gentlemen, and today the match that we are going to be talking about is, I forgot the year, but
1999.
1999. Yep. There we go. So it is before 2004. SmackDown 2004, because I feel like I have to preface that now. We're going to be talking about Rob Van Dam versus Jerry Lynn for the ECW World Television Championship at Living Dangerously.
That's right.
And it was really funny because trying to find this match was a little tough, only because they've gone against each other so much, and there's so many matches that every single time that it came up, I forgot what the pay-per-view was, but
Hardcore
I could never.
Heaven.
Yeah, that's the one, because I'm pretty sure that's the one that's more known.
Yep.
And
it's the rematch.
Okay, now I'm gonna want to watch that because again, I got a little invested throughout the story and everything, and it was just really cool seeing that come along. along, but we'll get to that as we build up the match and everything. So I'm kind of curious, why this match over something else?
Okay, so first of all, I was listening to your as of right now you asked Kevin where you would rate that match as far as stars goes, and he gave his match a 5-star, and I realized that my 5-star match is not before 2004. It's much later. So when I was like, well, I'm gonna pick a match that this match came out when I was 11, so I'm still very young. I've been watching wrestling for maybe even 6 years before that. So I'm very deep into watching wrestling, but that match, for whatever reason, captured my attention, and then it I don't know, it just got me to love this new idea of what wrestling could be, and it inspired me in ways that when I started wrestling, I couldn't even do 20% of what they did in that match, but that's not what pulled me. It was how they were able to draw the crowd in and get them invested. And it wasn't them doing what you would consider traditional wrestling with, like, your normal heel work or your babyface work. It was literally, anything you can do, I can do better. Mm-hmm. And the crowd halfway through the match starts getting away from Van Dam and starts cheering for Jerry Lynn. They start calling him the new effing show. Mm-hmm. That happened naturally within the match, about as naturally as when Bret and Austin turned heel and face. They switched places at WrestleMania 13. This is the ECW's equivalent of that, where like, oh, wait a minute, Van Dam was their guy. Mm-hmm. That was the guy there. And he was the point of watching. Like, if you're going to order a pay-per-view for ECW, you have to watch the RVD match. Even if it's not at the end, it's the main event. It really is. And up until that point, he was the highlight reel. When you put him together with Jerry Lynn, they just had magic. They had great chemistry. And I think people really started picking up with it, because as much as I love Jerry Lynn, I felt like back then Jerry Lynn was still kind of working on his charisma coming out. He was very kind of like, keep your head down, go to work, and he could do some phenomenal things. But Van Dam kind of supplemented that charisma, right? Like, he was so confident, so cocky, and he could obviously back it up. And I just think they mesh really well in that style. And yeah, those were the kind of matches that really drew me when I was young, and it just kind of inspired me. And when you said matches before 2004, there was a small list at the time, and I figured, you know what, I'm going to throw in an ECW match. Why not? Like, I don't know how far you've delved into ECW up until now. And I thought, well, let's just take a detour and we'll get back to the other stuff, but I hope you enjoyed it, is what I was aiming at.
I definitely did. Because again, I just love professional wrestling, and there's always different ways to tell stories. Even if it's something that may be out of my wheelhouse, you never know when you're going to connect with something in a really different way, right? So for example, I'm gonna get a little somber here, but I recently watched The Long Walk. I watched it like 2-3 days ago. Sure. And if you look at it, it's 50 guys from 50 different states doing a competition to just make it to the end, and then the one at the end wins, right? Yeah. I got so my heart was sinking watching the movie and everything, because the way I viewed it was us as professional wrestlers. Because you walk into a school and there's so many people there. It's like, we all have the same dream. We all want to make it to the finish line, but not everybody's going to make it. That's and right. Then slowly, for one reason or another, we keep falling. And that's what I kept seeing in like watching the movie as the kids fell and everything. I was like, oh God, this is where this person stopped. This is where this person stopped. And it made me like really reminisce about those people and everything. So watching this match, I kind of, you never know what story you're going to take. And for me, just watching this match felt very much like watching AEW now, which, AEW is not necessarily my style, but that's not to say that they're doing bad things. I prefer the drama, the storytelling stuff. And that's not to say that AEW doesn't do storytelling, but there's times here and there where the match can tell you the whole story. And that's where I think AEW does a really good job of telling the whole story in ring, where if the commentator can't do it, or not can't, but rather focuses on other things, or maybe I'm just coming in as a new person. I was like, I don't know what's going on. It's a new show. Let's watch this completely. I'm watching the pilot. Right. And then I was like, holy crap. Okay, that was cool. And now just watching this match, watching everything that happened, I was like, well, now I want to see Jerry Lynn come up, the underdog story. And that's something that I relate to, because Sami Zayn's my favorite wrestler currently. So it's like, I want to see the underdog win all the time, because he's going to run into a roadblock eventually. And then boom, now how are you going to overcome this roadblock? which I'm just going to put it out there right now. The day Sami Zayn beats Drew McIntyre, I'm throwing a party or something. One day, eventually.
I mean, and with that U.S. title run that he's got going on right now, I feel like that's the setup to get him to, like, everybody that had a big run with the U.S. title or the Intercontinental title was always a setup to get them, like, can this person be ready for the world title, WWE title, and whatnot? And I feel like Sammy's never been closer than what he is now, and it's gonna happen. So have that party ready to throw, man. It's gonna happen within a year or two, I feel.
My wife knows already that like all the stuff that I have of Sami Zayn's coming down because I have a WWE Championship replica with his side plates. I have the flag, I've got the wristbands, and I've got the shirts, I've got everything. So like the day it happens, I'm gonna just like it's all coming down. So we're throwing a party.
It's gonna be an insane party, I'm sure.
Yeah. There it is. He loves puns, guys, by the way. If we hear puns, please point them out in the comments.
I'll see my way out
now. But so to talk about the match, just to get things started here, funny story. I don't think I've shared this with you before, but I've actually met Bill Alfonso before. He was probably the first legend, aside from Booker, that I met that I actually had a conversation with. And this, at the time when I met him, I actually wanted to be a manager. Because when I came into wrestling, I first wanted to be a manager before I found that I wanted to do commentary. And so when I met him, I just kind of, he pulled us all aside. And he's like, all right, who wants to be the wrestler? And everybody raised their hands. And he looks at me, he's like, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to be a manager. He's like, come on, kid. And I was like, oh shit, Bill Alfonso's like pulling me aside. He gave me a lot of great knowledge and, just a lot of good things to think about, which that was like 7 months into the business. So I knew nothing. And it was just really cool having that conversation with him. And a lot of his teachings I'm keeping close to the chest because, again, it had to do with being a manager. But now I've changed that over into how can I apply that to being a commentator. Absolutely. And a lot of his teachings still affect me to this day. And it's stuff that, again, I keep close to the chest just because it's that knowledge that you're like, I want to share it, but I want to keep it for myself because, it was special to me because he picked me. So now seeing him do his work in this match, I was like, you are obnoxious, dude.
I wanted to punch him so many times. Oh my gosh.
Every 5 seconds I heard the whistle. I was like, what are you doing?
It's too much.
Yeah.
It is too much. I don't know how Van Damme even did it. Like, that's in every one of his matches, and I'm like, bro, just cut it off.
It probably just like became background noise at that point. But so yeah, seeing Bill Alfonso do his thing, and then obviously with Joey Styles on commentary telling me that he not only represents RVD, he represents Sabu. I forget who else he said that he represented, but he had all those championships with him and everything too. So that just speaks to the volume of what Bill Alfonso was trusted to do, as obnoxious as he was in this match.
Yeah, he. I want to say that Van Damme was a tag champ at the same time as being television champ, and his tag team partner was Sabu, who actually has a world championship match later on that show against Taz. And this is maybe a couple of months before Taz leaves to go to WWE for the Rumble. So it's probably like maybe a pay-per-view or two before he drops the belt.
Gotcha. Okay, so this was one of the questions because I told you I had many questions. So
hit me.
Were the rules different for ECW back then than it was for traditional professional wrestling?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's almost like it was like an unspoken rule that you could pretty much use any weapons that you wanted in a match, and I think it was more like cater it for what you needed. Like if the match needed to end at a DQ, maybe they could just ring the bell and call it off. But for the most part, it was anything goes. You could fight into the crowd. Most times, you'd be hard pressed to find a match in ECW that ended in a count out. So that's definitely something that's not traditional with what you're probably used to seeing with the modern day wrestling. So it's not necessarily like everything's like a death match per se, but chairs would be used mostly in every match, tables, and you wouldn't get disqualified for it. So a lot of that was on the table, no pun intended.
Gotcha. No, that pun very intended.
Pun very intended, actually. Yeah, I take that back.
Especially since one was broken and then one was almost broken later on in the match.
Oh my, that second one, the DDT.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that was rough.
Ooh, it was.
I feel like everybody's just gonna try and one up each other with showing me spots that I'm like, would you take that? Because this hasn't aired yet, so you haven't heard it. But there's a spot in the match that I talked with Ryan. I was like, would you take that spot? It's like, how big's the envelope, brother? So I'm just like, well, there's your answer right there.
There is actually a spot in this match that I wanted to take, but I never. The closest I ever got to it was actually with Kevin in a match. He and I would do this thing where Kevin did a lot of karate growing up, and he's really good with kicks. and he has this kick he does. It's like right to the back of the head. So we would do this like I would duck the first one, and he would come back with the roundhouse and catch me on the back end, and I would do I'd plant head first. That came from the spot where Bill Alfonso. It's my favorite spot of the match. Bill Alfonso has the chair. He tries to whack Jerry Lynn. Jerry Lynn catches it, takes the chair, bumps off Alfonso, swings at Van Dam. Van Dam ducks. As he's ducking, he's going for a leg sweep. He's going for a leg sweep, and Jerry Lynn jumps up and he catches a leg drop, and Van Dam just his head right into the chair that he had planted down.
Yeah.
It's my favorite spot, and I've always been inspired. I always wanted to take that. Like, it just looked really cool. Don't see it very often these days. The spot with Kevin and I was inspired from that motion. So inspiration doesn't necessarily have to mean imitation, I guess, right? So, and that's why also this match is really special to me, because it's what the crowd is just so into it, and the way they're reacting. That's how, when I was performing, that's what I wanted to get out of the fans. Even if I'm not doing that kind of style or those kind of spots, I still wanted that draw from them, and I wanted to give them that emotion. And I think that's something that's important also in, like, when you're storytelling and when you're coming up and, constructing a match. You have to leave those moments in, because that's what makes the match for me personally.
Yeah, and again, the fact that the fans were super into it. Again, I don't want to disparage anybody, because I know that's how people usually take podcasts and everything, right? But Joey Styles had a different style of commentary that I'm used to.
Yes.
Because I'm very used to the story aspects of a professional wrestling, right? Michael Cole, Vic Joseph, the people that I listen to mostly now, they tell you the story.
Yes.
Because when I talked to Vic, the first thing he told me was like, people have eyes. They can see what's going on. I was like, true. Why aren't you instead going to use this space as, let's tell you a little bit of story about the match? And that's something that I wish I got more from Styles. And again, that's part of my the questions that I was like, well, what was the story leading into this, coming into this? Because then at that point I get invested. But I got invested just, again, off of the storytelling in the ring, which, if that's what ECW was mostly known for, then great. Because at the end of the day, again, Booker tells us this all the time, it's about getting the fans invested.
Yes.
They paid a ticket, you got to get them invested, but then you also got to be able to tell a story to the people watching at home, because then they're going to be the ones that are going to continue to buy your product over and over again.
That's right.
And that's the one thing that I think I love about the ECW fans, which I see a lot in AEW fans now. They're just diehard love of the sport type of people. They're just like, we just want to see the best of the best. The stories are going to tell each other in the ring. They're going to tell themselves in the ring. But then other than that, just give me two wrestlers that are really good at this stuff and just make them fucking go. Like fucking bulls, just like, running right into each other.
It was such a rabid environment, and again, I'm like 11 at this point, and I'm watching like these shows, and even though I was never in the crowd, I always watched them from home. It just that like that aura, I guess you could say, like the environment they've created, it pulls you in, and you kind of just like. Even if back then I didn't know any of those wrestlers, so I'm watching RVD for the first time, Jerry Lynn for the first time, Dreamer, Tajiri, Super Crazy, all these guys. I don't know anything about them, but I'm learning about them because the fans already have chants for them. They'll boo you when it's not going the right way. They'll let you know, as loyal as they are. They'll also let you know when you've made a mistake, and they're a little less forgiving about that. But I don't know, they're almost just as important as the wrestlers were to the match.
And again, just the ECW fans were just like that, because I mean, now if you look at the AEW fans too, they love their people through and through for different reasons. And I mean, I also like AEW to a certain extent, because sometimes I'm just like, maybe it's a little too much, maybe it's just I want a little bit more drama to it. But I think that's probably why I think Hangman Page stands out so much, because he's one of those people that's able to just traverse, or like transcend rather, the space that they're at, where they don't need to have like the best story, even though he is part of the best story, because he's going to tell all of his stuff in the ring.
Yes.
And that's an incredible skill to have that is just so rare to see nowadays.
Absolutely. And you've probably heard this expression before, but wrestling is like different flavors of ice cream, right? I'm of the mind of I like going to the ice cream shop, and I'll try all the flavors. And there's some flavors I like less than others, but ice cream is ice cream, and that's just for me personally. And I know there's people that are just hardcore one flavor, and that's fine too. I think wrestling works for everybody in some capacity. And I do enjoy watching AEW and WWE, New Japan, Ring of Honor, in the indies and stuff like that, and wherever I can get it. So I can appreciate the styles and the attempts. And there's some things in this very match that aren't as traditional. You mentioned the like, are there rules per se? There was also this other thing, and I don't know if do we want to talk about the ending already? Can
Sure.
we,
Well, however you want to take it. Yeah, however you want to take it.
So I wonder if one of your questions was about the finish, where they run into a time limit draw, and Joey has to step in and fill this part in because, and this is only for the people watching at home. He's saying the referee has called the time has expired, and he's awarding Jerry Lynn the championship. He feels that Jerry Lynn has done enough to win the television championship. When I saw that, I had never seen anything like that before. I don't think anybody had ever ran that angle where it went to a draw. Usually the champion just retains. But in this one, they were making you, they made a point that the story of the match, they wanted you to know that Jerry Lynn might have had RVD's number if the time had not expired. And the referee was literally giving him the belt. But Jerry Lynn is like, no. He's the one that's like, I want 5 more minutes. And Van Dam's like, I don't care. I'm the champion. The belt goes to me. I didn't lose. But the referee's like, no, I'm saying you did lose. I'm going to give the belt to Lynn. And Lynn's like, no, 5 more minutes. I want to win this championship. And the thing I'm almost 99% sure that this is the birth of the 5 more minutes chant. I believe it happened in this very match because you can hear the rumblings. If you go back or I don't know if you caught it, but you can hear the crowds. Lynn is doing the motion of the 5 fingers, and the fans are like, 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes. And then eventually somebody just figured out the rhythm, and they're like, 5 more minutes, and then clap, 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 clap. And I've never seen anything like that before. I'm like, what? Like, yeah, we're going to get, this match was only like a 20-minute time limit. Like, we're going to get more. This is great. And then, of course, it was enough for Van Dam to pull the win and, like, whew, like, sweat off his brow. He was able to sneak it out again. But the story of that was so cool to me. Like, Jerry Lynn had the belt won, but that's not how he wouldn't have felt like a real champion. Like, he had honor to that, and he wanted to win by beating Rob Van Dam. That was really cool. That stood out to me from that match. And again, back in 1999, I hadn't seen anything like that, so it was a really cool moment.
And I think that also speaks just to the fact of, like, Jerry Lynn, like, having the not necessarily the underdog vibe to it, but like you said, he would feel like a fake champion.
Yes.
We talk about that in the UFC all the time. It's like, well, you're the interim champion. Are you actually the champion?
Right.
And there's always those questions, like, you're not the champion until you actually beat the champion. Yeah. So I think that just adds a whole layer to the storytelling as a whole, where, yeah, you could have his number, but that delayed gratification was like, I know I can do this. Let me actually do this. And to a more recent example, Cody Rhodes losing at WrestleMania 39. Everybody's like, this is stupid. This is dumb. It ruined WrestleMania. But then, it's like, now we know, in hindsight, we know everything, right? Which is, it's always really funny to me, like, listening to wrestling fans just, like, talk, which, again, everybody can have their opinions. There's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
But it's always fascinating to me that people have that immediate primal reaction to, this sucks, I hate this.
Yeah.
And they hate hearing, just wait, see what happens. And it's because we don't know where the story's going. And sometimes they drop the ball. That's going to happen. That's just the thing of storytelling. It can happen. Yeah. But when it hits, brother, it hits.
I think we sometimes forget that wrestling isn't a movie. It's more of it's a TV show. And then not always do you get that payoff you wanted at the end. At the end of a movie, you might, because it's shorter and it's all right there for you packaged up. And but sometimes looking at the bigger picture, it deters you a little bit. It's like, oh, I don't want to wait, and I don't know when it's gonna come, and I want it now, and I understand that too. There, because say you went to WrestleMania 39, but not WrestleMania 40. Obviously, you paid a ticket. You want to see that moment happen, but it doesn't always happen the way you want it to happen. I can't tell you how many times I've been wrong picking who's going to win the Royal Rumble that year. It's like, I don't think I've ever gotten it right.
Shout out to Jey Uso this year, by the way.
I mean, that's because fantastic.
Nobody saw it coming. Nobody
No.
saw it coming. And I think the coolest part about that is Jey Uso is a reality wrestling guy.
Yeah, yes, he
so that was the show that I actually hosted at my job at a movie theater.
Oh, cool.
So we got our own little private theater with nothing but Raw people. So we saw Jey Uso beat John Cena at the Royal Rumble. I was like, brother, what?
I was at home, and I had my uncle Rubio, who was my manager at Reality of Wrestling, and we were both watching it, and we were both just losing our minds at the, like, oh my God, he's Final 4. Oh, he's Final 2? Like, wait a minute. Like, I still thought Cena was going to go over. So I was like, it's so cool. He'll have that in his, resume. He was second to last at the Royal Rumble. That's pretty great. And then he wins. I lost my mind. I was super, super happy for him, because I was able to work with him and Jimmy for a couple of months, maybe like 6-7 months while they were at PWA back then. And there were times where it was just the three of us, and or the occasional people would straggle in, because back then training was Monday through Friday, but really Wednesday through Friday was when most people would start showing up. But I was there Monday through Friday because I was opening, and I lived down the street from the original gym, and they would show up Monday through Friday. So I got a lot of one-on-one time with them, and that was a really special moment to see them. That was great.
Hell yeah, I love that. Truly, I think that's just the coolest part for me now too, being here for almost 10 years at Reality of Wrestling.
Sure.
I get to see my friends do some pretty cool stuff.
Man.
So like, seeing Roxanne do her stuff on Raw, I'm like, hell yeah. Like I remember when she walked in when she was 16, I was like, there's something here. Dude. And it's awesome.
It's great. It really, it's to the point now where, like, I'm not necessarily living vicariously off through their successes, but it brings me such joy to see, like, Sammy, Brian Keith, just the laundry list of people that are getting to go out there, and
all the banners.
All the banners. Yeah. All the people that are literally the, in my opinion, like, some of the best success stories that reality wrestling has had. And,
hell yeah,
wrestling's great, man.
And you helped build that.
I mean, I don't know about all that.
He's not going to take the compliments,
I'm not
guys.
Take the compliment,
but I believe it. But to go back to the ECW match,
Yes.
again, it's just the feeling of it all too is just. It's funny because, again, the extent of my ECW knowledge, and again, this is probably going to get me in hot water, and I'm okay with it because that's what this podcast is here for, is WWE ECW. We'll call it that.
Okay.
So the Silver Championship was my world championship. And that's when I got cable. So Jack Swagger, Sheamus, Zack Ryder, those were like my ECW guys and everything. But then I got to see, the older people like Tommy Dreamer. I only know of Raven. I have never seen him wrestle. There's maybe like one match that I've seen of his and whatnot.
Okay.
And I know that he's a big influence on CM Punk as well. So I feel like I'm going to see a lot of similarities there. But I only know Sandman as, the kendo stick guy. I've never seen a Balls Mahoney match. A lot of the older ECW people, I was like, I don't know. Just Incredible. Like, these are all just like names to me.
Sure.
So to finally get the time to be able to sit down and watch, I'm good. I guess I'm going to call it prime RVD. Like, what got him noticed to go to WWE was kind of cool, because we talk about uniqueness. We talk about dynamic skills and everything. And it's a word that I keep using to describe Eli Knight and Oro Anan, who was just at Reality of Wrestling recently and everything. But that truly was dynamic for its time, because there was nobody else to this day that does stuff like RVD.
Yeah, so let's go back to 1999. RVD is the television champion. I want to say it's and I don't have the number in front of me. He's either it's an 18-month run or like a 20-month run with the television championship. He doesn't make it to the 2 years, I don't think, because I think he ends up like breaking his ankle, so he has to drop the belt eventually. But he had, let's call it 18 months of nothing but highlight matches against Bam Bam Bigelow, Balls Mahoney, Jerry Lynn, just to name a few. And these were such good matches. Even if he was working with somebody that wasn't necessarily on his level as far as like athleticism, like your Jerry Lynn's, say like your Balls Mahoney, who's a bigger guy, and he was more of a brawler anyways, you know, steel chairs and stuff like that. He was more of what you think ECW is. That's kind of more what Balls Mahoney was. And even that, like, those are probably some of the better Balls Mahoney matches were the ones with Van Dam. My favorite Bam Bam Bigelow match is the one with Van Dam. I think that's when he wins the television championship, as he beats Bigelow for it. He was their man. He was the guy to watch. Again, if you're going to order a pay-per-view, you had to watch the Van Dam match just to see what he was going to come up with. This doesn't happen in this match. This happens later in his return, which is maybe like a year later or so, I think. He started hyping up. People were now watching because he's going to debut a move. And there was an angle in the match, and it's fine, but really, we're watching because he's going to debut a move, and it was the Van Terminator. And we're like, what's the Van Terminator? What's that going to be? And the match happens, and we're finally set up, and all of a sudden, the crowd just hushes. And Van Dam puts the chair on, I forget the cat who he's wrestling. I don't remember his name, unfortunately. Sorry, guys. He puts the chair on his face. He goes to the opposite side of the corner, and Joey Styles is like, I think this is it. I think he's going for the Van Terminator. Van Dam does the look around. He points at the guy who's way far on the other side of the ring, and springboard, boom, drop kick to the face. The crowd loses their mind because they know that was the story of that match. We're going to get to the point where he's going to debut this really cool move. And again, that's just, no one else was doing that. And I don't think even to this day, you wouldn't watch a wrestler say, I'm going to debut this blah, blah, blah. And like, well, I'm going to watch it because he's going to debut this blah, blah, blah. And it's going to be amazing. It just doesn't happen like that anymore. It just, you had to be there kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if anybody's going to pull that off now, it would have to kind of be like a comedy gimmick. Because could you imagine that? Just be like, I'm going to debut a new move tonight. And then right before they do it, they get like rolled up or something. Yeah. And they're like, I didn't even get to do it. Dylan Fleer, take notes.
That would be amazing.
I'm going to pitch that to Kevin because I love that idea. Just to, like on Breakout, I think it would be funny.
That'd be great.
And then Buck Gator. There it is.
There you go. Look at that.
We're booking things now, Kevin. This is our show.
It's official. It's on record. It has to happen now, right?
But yeah, I actually think that's really cool that that's a thing that, Van Dam is like, I'm going to debut a new move. And that becomes the whole identity of that matchup.
Yeah.
Was there anybody else at the time, like from ECW, that was doing things the way he was? Like, not necessarily like, being the main draw or being the main guy, but doing things in such a unique way. Because I do know the Heyman philosophy that I've heard, through people just talking to me about Paul Heyman and everything, where hide the weaknesses and put
accentuate
a spotlight.
The positives.
Yeah. So was there anybody else that would like really shone under that spotlight that you think I should keep an eye on for ECW?
So yes. So for different reasons, Van Dam, obviously the athleticism, the creativeness, and just overall spectacle. Jerry Lynn had some really great matches with other people as well, like your Lance Storms, your Just Incredibles. He actually becomes heavyweight champion towards the dying days of ECW. Rhino was also somebody that maybe to keep an eye on. I really liked Steve Carreon, who he got a run with the heavyweight championship. He was very charismatic, athleticism-wise, maybe not as showy as Van Dam, but he had more of the king of old school. He had more of an old school approach, and he just felt like he was from that era. So he also was somebody that I really liked. Raven, I would say for the promos, I'm hard pressed to think of you got to watch this Raven match, at least in ECW. I enjoyed Raven's run in TNA more because I felt like he got to do a little more in the ring for a couple of those years, and especially in the early years especially in the six-sided. I think he's there pretty much from almost year one, but maybe like his 05 run for Raven, if you wanted to watch some Raven. There was just so many. Everybody played a different role, right? Like, Dreamer was, he was the baby face you were going to get behind, and, he was just fighting from the inside always, and God, he didn't win this time, but man, he gave him such a fight, Mikey Whipwreck, who, to start off, he didn't have any offense moves. He was just getting beat up. Again, those ECW is the story of the underdogs. Spike Dudley, Taz wasn't necessarily an underdog, but he was a smaller guy, but he was going out there and he was like a pit bull fighting against all these dudes. And there's a lot of really, really unique approaches to like how they performed, but Van Damme for me was at the top.
So if we were to kind of compare, like, let's say generations, right? Would you, and I'm trying to just like encompass this in my brain to understand it to modern, the modern lens and everything. Would you say RVD is to ECW what Hangman is to AEW, to kind of, bring that around from what I said earlier? Like, he's like the face of the company?
I would say I'd say he's close. I would say he's closer to maybe Jerry Lynn in the way, because like, I still feel Van Damme is very showy and athletic, and you know what you're gonna get from him, and you also don't know what you're gonna get from him. So I'd say Van Damme's maybe closer to like a Kenny Omega type.
Okay.
And then maybe Hangman is closer to Jerry Lynn in the sense of like, maybe Hangman has come out more out of his shell than Lynn did back in that time, I would say. But that with Hangman, he's going to go out there and he's going to, bite down in the mouth guard, and you're going to see a hell of a wrestling match and whatnot. So that would be my personal, at least how I see it. I'm sure other people have different opinions.
And I actually really like that too, the fact that you said it was Kenny Omega, because if just based on what I know, RVD and Jerry Lynn are kind of like kindred spirits as far as like, wrestling partners and everything, because I've heard of the matchup, or rather the matchups, but I've never actually seen the match until yesterday was the first time I watched it. And, we all know Kenny Omega and Hangman are like the two kindred spirits of AEW, because when they get together, they create magic.
It's some of my favorite matches, I think, of AEW are those two when they get to do their thing. And with Van Damme and Lynn, not only did they have their matches in ECW, they had matches like all over the world and for multiple promotions. I think even TNA, I think they even called it back like maybe 12 years later after the original. And those guys, sometimes you just when I was still wrestling, we would say like, you're the Steamboat to my Flair kind of thing, right? Where they're just, peanut butter and jelly. They make the perfect sandwich. And to me, Lynn and Van Damme, it's one of my favorite rivalries in wrestling as well, which was another reason why I wanted to pitch this match to you, because again, and it's less about I hate you, whatever. It's not about that. It was about putting on the best possible match at that time that they could put, and they did. And even though the promotion was probably, I think they closed their doors in 2001, like early 2001. And I think their first matchups start happening in 1999. They maybe have like 4 matches, I think, including they're one of the last pay-per-view matches. This is with Lynn is already heavyweight champion, and he's full on heel at this point. Van Damme has the match with him, and they have a really good match. But to me, it was the Living Dangerously match that stands out the most, even though the Hardcore Heaven match is the match I've seen the most from there. But I didn't want to pitch that one until you saw this one also, because you have to appreciate what they went for in this one to really like, okay, Lynn's going to come in hard for this rematch, which was like a month or 2 later. And I'd say there's more memorable things as far as like sequences and close calls in the rematch for the Hardcore Heaven 99 pay-per-view than there were in this one. But again, it's like, when you watch the Lord of the Ring trilogy, you're not going to start at Two Towers. You got to go and watch Fellowship and to appreciate this one. And then maybe if you want to continue and watch the one from the last pay-per-view and go ahead and watch Return of the King, that's just, you just got to do it sometimes. Like, it just has to be done. You got to watch it in order,
It's really funny that you use that specific thing as an analogy because I actually did start watching Lord of the Rings from the Two Towers, because to this day, nobody wants to sit through Fellowship of the Ring with me. And every time I say that to somebody, they're like, I'll do it. And then they never do.
I'm not even joking you. Fellowship's my favorite one of the 3.
Is it the scary Bilbo?
I'll tell you exactly what it is. Funny enough, what year is that? Is that 2001?
I think so, yeah.
I think so. So I'm in middle school, and I haven't realized that I like sci-fi and fantasy and comic book movies.
Yeah.
It's at the start of all that. And I watched that one, and it just captured me, man. That Fellowship was everybody loves Two Towers, and I love it too. And I love Return of the King as well. They all have their things about them. Not to make this a movie podcast all of a sudden, but
Technically, it is.
oh, okay, all right, fair enough, fair enough. Fellowship, just I don't know. There's just something about like what can happen and what's about to happen. The setup, you know. In many ways, it's the shine, right? It's like this, like they put it on a platter, and it's like stuff happens in it. Obviously, important stuff, you know. But it's what we're going. That's like ooh, which is kind of what this match was to me.
Yeah. And again, that's to bring it again to a conversation we were having earlier. It's also the Cody Rhodes payoff too.
Yeah.
Losing at 39 when we all thought that was going to be it.
Yeah.
It just made 40 that much sweeter. And it was really cool because 39, I didn't even know Heather yet. I hadn't even met her yet.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to explain all of this to her, but I'm going to have her watch 40 with me. And she actually was there watching with me. And she's still kind of getting the hang of wrestling. She doesn't really get it. She thinks it's a little overproduced now.
Sure.
Which, as I mentioned in the Kevin episode, when I was watching the Eddie Ray match, she was like, that was incredible. Like, what was that? I was like, that was wrestling. And that's when I started realizing that maybe that art has kind of changed, which again, for ECW, it's a completely different art as well. Because my preconceived notion of ECW is like, oh, everyone's going to use weapons. There's going to be tables. There's going to be, you know, the flaming tables, and, you know, it's going to be like a macabre scene and everything, right? But watching this match, I saw more of like, that's why I had that question. It's like, were there like no rules technically? Was it just, you know, the ref doing his own thing? Is like, you know, the referee discretion, as we like to call it. And, you know, it kind of made me wonder, is like, maybe I have seen this differently, but that's because I'm coming from an ignorant place. And that's not, again, I'm going to keep saying this over and over again on this podcast. Ignorant is not a bad thing. It just means that I don't know.
Right.
When I choose to know what's happening and I still turn a blind eye to it, then I'm just being negligent at that point.
Right.
But ignorance just means that I just don't know. I'm not aware of that's how it was because I haven't had the resources to make the time to try and understand it.
Right. And that's the whole purpose of this podcast, right? I mean, and I think no good historian starts off as a historian. You have to learn the thing, right? Yeah, and then there's nothing wrong with that. You know, there was an expression I once heard: the day you stop learning is the day you stop lacing up your boots. And I think that's absolutely right. And that goes for any role, any position in the wrestling business. You have to keep learning and you have to keep growing because it changes so fast. You saw a match from that Halloween Havoc is 97, I believe. This one was 1999. You might even say there's similarities in like those matches were standouts from those shows for sure. They were the must-watch matches. And even with the sequences they were coming up with, both those matches had things that you had never seen before in wrestling up until that point, certainly, and maybe even now. And I think it's recognized by the people that are there, and it should definitely be studied and analyzed for the people that are here right now because they're able to create such magic outside of the bubble that is pro wrestling right now. And you can, you know, I'm not saying go out there and reinvent the wheel every single time, but they took their spots and they made it their own. They made something special with what they were given. I'm sure they had, you know, hey, this is what we need tonight, and go out there and do it. And yeah, okay, but I'm gonna do what you asked me to do, and I'm gonna do it my way. And you know, it both those matches had really great crowds, and they're drawn into it because they know they're watching something special. And I think not every match can be that, especially back to back to back to back, right? You can't exactly do that every single time, but when you are able to do it, it just stands the test of time. And I think this match is definitely, if you had to watch any 3 ECW matches, this one would be the one I would always put on number 1 personally. Not having that list fully thought out in my head right now, but that one is always going to be considered for sure. You know, again, ECW, I liked it for different reasons. I got different things out of it every single time. You know, I'm 11, so of course, I love the chaos of it. You mentioned like, oh, Flaming Tables. Yeah, that wasn't in this match, but it was on the show, I'm sure. And there was other matches that were doing that. And, you know, it was maybe they overdid it in other matches, and that was probably due to well, maybe that's all this person can do, and they would go to the well a little too much and whatnot. But with the Van Dam and Jerry Lynn's, what makes that match so special is because that one has less of that stuff in it. and the fans are getting that breath of fresh air of like, oh, there's nothing like this on this show. And I think if anybody was to watch this match and to draw something from it, it would be that you can create your own magic, whatever that is. If you're a promo guy, if you're an athletic guy, if you're just a pure wrestler, if you're a super athlete or a super heavyweight, whatever it may be, you hide the negatives, accentuate the positives, and go out there and do your role your way. Because I can't do what you can do. And you know what I mean? And so go out there and do what you do best. That's what's going to help the show move forward. And it really did. And I think that's what gave longevity to ECW. And maybe it's not recognized right away because, again, you're thinking it's this hardcore space. And this match had hardcore elements. But I think it's driven by what's being done on the back end. I think it's almost like a mirage. It's a mask. Yeah, the hardcore stuff. But there's still wrestling behind that. Wrestling's wearing that mask. You know, you're still pushing through. You still have the stuff that they were doing in the NWA and WCW, WWE. It's all there. It's the same formula. It's just different tablecloths. You know, I'm going to use every analogy in the book that I could think of. And I think inspiration comes in different ways. And for me, from that match specifically, it was about how can I go out there and I'll tell you exactly where I would pull this match from. When I would wrestle guys that could do things that I know I couldn't do. To bring it to reality wrestling, guys like a Will Alday, who to me, I think can go out there and do anything under God's green earth. But if I were to wrestle him, I'd probably watch this match and I would, to bring it to lucha libre stances, I'd be the base, I'd be, whatever you go out there and do, we'll construct this match to the point where I'll be there where you need me to be, and we'll come up with really great sequences to accentuate the already amazing things you can do. And I think those guys were that to each other. They were accentuating each other. They were bringing themselves up. And I think that's what people should kind of get from watching wrestling. If you're in the wrestling space, whether you're also doing commentary, like all that stuff, it applies to that too. It's all a performance, right? You said that you're used to like a commentary, like the storytelling of it. You're used to more of like, it's almost like not a narrator per se, but maybe like a narrator. And there's an art form to that too. It's literally storytelling. Like that's literally what, the people in the ring are trying to do that physically, and you're doing that vocally. You're providing that narrative. There's an art form to that too, because Joey Styles had a handicap in where he's the only person doing it. That stands him out, right?
It's tough.
It's so tough because so like let's workshop that. Let's say Joey Styles does the style of a Michael Cole, where he's more so telling about like the emotions and the impact of the story, and it's more story driven. It's a little harder to do when there's nobody to rebuttal or nobody to bounce off of that, right? Mm-hmm. You can't feed someone a line. It's like, Jerry Lynn's giving it all he's got. What is he going to be able to blah, blah, blah. There's nobody to reply to that. So he has to rely in describing the moves. He always says the name of the move. You don't really see that too much these days. His is also more reactionary. That, oh my God, he always had that, which was just a catchphrase of his. I can't imagine how difficult it would be to be a one-man show, being the commentator. But I mean, that's what makes that match so special. It all just comes together.
Yeah, the commentary aspect, again, that's why I said I don't want to disparage Joey Styles, because I think he's a fantastic dude just based off of his work alone. I know how tough it is to do one-man booths. I've heard Brad do one-man booths, and I'm just like, holy God, it's hard, because we have roles in commentary, for those of you guys that don't know, where the play-by-play and the color. The way it's always been explained to me is that the play-by-play is the one driving the car. We're the ones that have to get from point A to point B, tell the story, get people invested, draw them in, count the falls, and stuff like that. and then the color is kind of like, you know, the personality of the table. They're the ones that are in the back seat or changing the music and, you know, just kind of being the guides on that aspect and everything. So it's really tough when you don't have that second person to bounce off of, because then you're basically just having the conversation by yourself. And again, it's just tough to talk to yourself. So
Yeah.
shouts out to Joey Styles for doing that as a whole, because again, I expected for there to be two commentators.
Yeah.
I had no idea that Joey Styles was the only one doing it. So when I booted up the match, I was like, where's the second person? It's like, nope, it's just Joey Styles doing his thing. It's tough, dude. One man booths are tough.
He for all intents and purposes, I feel like he pulled it off for the style that he did it, the way he did it. And I do think over the course of ECW, there is occasions where there is somebody that Don Callis ends up, before he does his like full on Cyrus the Virus or whatever gimmick, I think he does the table with him as well for towards the end of the ECW run. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. There was something special from the match. I want more of your opinion on what you thought of the match, because I was nervous to pitch this match because I didn't know how deep your ECW knowledge, or even like, do you even like ECW? Like, I want to know more about, like, I just booted this match with no prior knowledge to the rivalry.
Okay.
What were your thoughts, and what did you get out of this match, if anything at all?
So the biggest thing for me was, like I mentioned, the comparison to AEW, right? Because again, I like AEW. I'm not gonna say I love AEW because I know that I'm not well versed in it. I gave it a shot when it first started.
Sure.
Because you know, Kylie Ray got signed, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna give it a shot. Because again, I also just want to be more. If I can have more ice cream of a different flavor,
Yes.
I'm going to get the different ice cream of a different flavor, right?
That's right.
But then, you know, as things progressed and everything, that's how I fell in love with Hangman, because Hangman is probably my favorite non-WWE wrestler who we're probably never going to see in WWE, and that's okay, because again, whatever floats your boat, whatever you're happy with, as long as you're performing and you're happy, dude, do your thing, dude. I don't care. So it really gave me that vibe of AEW, where it's an alternative. It is not the dramatic storytelling of like, oh, we're not going to care about the moves. To kind of share an anecdote that I love sharing with commentators as I'm, you know, helping them get used to our flavor of ice cream and everything. I've heard this from 3 different people now, and they tell me the exact same thing word for word. If you call it an ushigoroshi and people can see it, how are they going to know that it's a knee to the back of the head? And it's like, you're right. And I mean, I know what an ushigoroshi is,
Yeah.
but as a storyteller, you need like, oh, look at the knee to the back of the head. If you tell that to anybody, they're like, oh, they can understand that. But if they hear ushigoroshi, they're like, what the hell is that? So, you know, that's kind of where I have to like peel back myself. Like, I know what an ushigoroshi is. I know what a Spanish fly is, et cetera, et cetera. And it's better to, if you can use that time to focus on like how impactful that was. And, you know, and instead of saying, oh, ushigoroshi, we know his neck problem, is like, okay, like any new viewer, they're like, okay, I'm gonna guess that's that, but you have to break it down even further. Oh, the knee to the back of the head. We know Edge's history with neck problems because he had the surgery.
Right.
You know, how is that gonna affect him going into later in the match? That is a completely different picture to paint. So to hear Joey Styles just start off with that, it's like, oh, elbow and neck, collar and elbow tie up, and you know the head scissors take over. I was like, but why are they fighting, Joey? I know it's about a TV title, but why is this important? Is this the first time they're facing off? Does RVD have, you know, the upper hand? Who's the face? Who's the heel?
Right.
And sometimes I like it broken down for me because, you know, sometimes I don't know, like, right? It's my first time viewing this, and you kind of have to keep that evergreen.
Yeah.
That's kind of been my my favorite word of the past month. You gotta be able to have anybody watch this and be like, I want to watch more.
Yes.
So that at first I was like, okay, it's just I have to change the way my brain sees this match just based off of that. But as you know, everything traversed, everything was happening, I kind of picked up that RVD was the heel and Jerry Lynn was the face. And maybe that was the dynamic going into the match. I'm not quite sure. But as everything progressed, I could see that Jerry Lynn was the underdog in this. RVD was cocky. He had the obnoxious manager. He had like all the accolades and everything, but he he wasn't a chicken shit heel, so to speak. He was still fighting, which is, something that I feel we don't really see from heels much anymore, unless, you're somebody like a Rusev or an Obafemi or something, because you're just going to, bulldoze through people. When you can bully somebody, you're going to bully somebody. That's just kind of, human nature and everything, unfortunately. And I feel like that's kind of what RVD was doing. He was still, employing his game plan as a competitor, but he knew that he was better. So he could be cocky. He was already been TV champion, like you said, for a while. And who is this smaller guy? It's like, who you got nothing. You're not. Can
Easy
you kick
work.
like Can you kick like me? No. Can you do this? No. Do you have a manager like me? No. And he had his head really built up, and you could again see that because the crowd was fully behind him, even though he was a heel. And as time progressed, Jerry Lynn was able to win those people over as like, oh, fuck you, dude. We want that guy as our champion. Holy crap. And, I like those type of matches that really put somebody on the next level. The first match I ever watched was WrestleMania 20, Cena and Big Show. I knew nothing about John Cena, but I was like, you're smaller. That guy's being a dick. I don't like him. And then when he won, everybody goes crazy because, the big guy was thwarted. I was like, that's cool. I like this stuff. And, everything kind of kept going. And then later I got to see different ways to tell that same story. Same thing with Eddie and Kurt. Kurt's being a jerk. Eddie's being, the cocky Mexican and everything. I was like, I like that guy. And I mean, obviously I saw a lot of myself in him too when I was a young kid and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And, that's kind of the same thing that I got from this match. Like RVD's being the big bully. I was like, I don't like that. And then Jerry Lynn's like, I'm going to be able to turn you onto my side. And those stories, again, with commentary not there to assist with that, is amazing to be able to tell. Because I guarantee you, if I show this match to Heather, because she didn't have a chance to watch this with me yet, she'll be like, I kind of get it, I think. But then as, later on, she's going to be like, I like that.
Yeah.
So overall, I like the match. Obviously not... my brain still thinks WWE, and it's probably going to think that because that's just the way my brain goes. But I like seeing the different formats for us to have the same formula, so to speak. With we talked about it in all the previous episodes: the opening of the match, then the shine, then the heat, the cutoff, and all that stuff. And to see that in a different way was really cool because the formula is there. It's so accessible for anybody that's in wrestling. Even Heather figured it out within watching wrestling for like 2 months. She's like, I know when this is going to happen because this guy does this. I know when this is going to happen because this guy does this. I was like, well, yeah, that's the formula. And then that's kind of what turned her away from it. Is like, well, if it's going to be the same thing, then why do I care? I was like, well, you got to get to know the characters and, just kind of go from there. So slowly but surely, I'm winning her over to wrestling, which is great. But yeah, so the match overall, I liked it. Again, I feel like you said, it's a good starting point. It's the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yes.
And now after watching it, I'm like, I want to see Jerry Lynn win. And I'm assuming now I know what happens at the finale, of course, because, we can always assume we know what's going to happen at the finale. But sometimes they throw a curveball, and I'm like, okay, maybe I was wrong. I don't know. But as far as things go, I think this was a great suggestion because, again, as I'm delving more into old stuff, I can see what old is new again.
Yeah.
So, again, we just based off of the conversation so far, we talked about a comedy gimmick that I was like, we could do what RVD was doing, but turn it into a comedy thing. And I already have the perfect person in mind, 2 perfect people in mind as well, as a matter of fact. And, you never know when those things are going to hit. And to, again, borrow something from somebody, shout out to Rob Barnes. He taught me this rule in wrestling is the rule of 7. After 7 years, everything is all fresh all over again. So if you want to reuse a gimmick that was there 7 years ago, people are not going to remember it unless they're the hardcore fans. But even then, 7 years ago, some kids weren't even around. So maybe you could, repurpose it, revamp it, do something new with it, and come up with something new. And so ever since then, I started thinking about that with Rob. He always comes into my brain with like the random teachings that he gave me. And at the time, Bray Wyatt was massive. But if you look at him, Waylon Mercy did that earlier too. And I've never seen anything Waylon Mercy unless somebody shows the comparisons there. But it was basically the same thing. But quite frankly, I am biased. I think Bray did it better.
Yeah, I mean, and Bray had I think had a better. He had more input in what he wanted. Like, I think he actually had an idea of what he wanted that character to be. And I hope he was able to execute exactly what he wanted out of it. But it went to really cool places, and and going back to Barnes's method there, even that changed for him within that run. It became this, that became that, even towards the end of his run, like it became something else too. It was, and all those, every step of the way, it was that much more special. And it was really, he was another one that also really inspired me too, because he had, I fell in love with his work more so on the promo side of things. I thought he was saying some really cool things in really cool ways. Towards the end of my wrestling run, that's what was really drawing me, is what the people, the men and women that had something really cool to say, or how they were saying it. And that's what drew me into like, oh man, that's awesome. Like, but even within the context of Bray, he transformed over the years, and Waylon didn't. I don't think I could name a Waylon Mercy match, with the exception of like maybe the 1993 Royal Rumble match that he's in. I think I don't think he had maybe the space to be able to pull that off in 1992, 1993. I can't imagine what a Bray Wyatt character back in 93 would have even been. It probably wouldn't have hit as well as it did in 2013 whenever Bray goes to the main roster.
Mm-hmm. And really fun story actually that I want to share with you, because I don't think I've ever told you this before. Do you know how I found Ro?
Mm-mm.
So I was flipping through channels, and I know that based on what I've learned about Ro and everything, I know you were known as the promo guy. And that's a really cool distinction, because promos are a big facet of what we do to get the characters over and everything. But as I was flipping through channels, I just saw this one guy talking, and don't worry, it wasn't you.
Okay, good.
I think that's where you thought it was headed.
My stomach was turning upside down.
So I just flipping through the channels, and I just see this one guy talking about this thing called Legion, and I was like, okay, what the hell is he talking about? He drew me in just the way that he was talking, and then I just like, okay, that was cool. What is this? And then it did the transition over to the wrestling ring. I was like, oh, this is wrestling. And then BK was coming out before he got the pants and everything. He was wearing his tights and everything.
Oh, wow.
So it was like early Ro. It's like year 2 Ro, I think. And so I was like, what is happening here? And so, to speak of the promos, like Shawn Hendricks managed to like just captivate me with like whatever he was saying. I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but I love this. And then obviously one thing led to another. Within the next year, I went to a fantasy camp. 2 years after that, or a year after the fantasy camp, I actually started at Ro and everything. But yeah, like the promos are so important too. Yeah. And, talking about Raven and, talking about you being the promo guy and all that stuff, the promos are so important. And I kind of want to also just dig deep to see maybe there were promos of this that I could, maybe give me a little bit of an inkling of how the match was put together for RVD and Jerry Lynn, because I don't know how ECW structurally worked for the show aspect of it.
They would do less in-ring promos. Most times it would be at the start of a match. They'd get the mic and maybe they'd cut like a 30-second whatever. It was a lot of backstage brawls. They would do some one-on-ones in front of the ECW curtain with Joey Styles being the mic guy. Or sometimes they'll do like that crazy, like the camera's moving in all wild directions and it's like right in front of you just to seem edgy and different.
Whoa.
Yeah, exactly. Whoa. There would be a lot of that. But with Van Dam, for this match particularly, I don't think there is a promo. I think for Hardcore Heaven, there is one. And it's more so Alfonso, baby, Van Dam's going to go out there, baby. And he's just talking real fast. And then Van Dam just at the end is like, look, it's, all cool, calm, and, he's so super confident. He's like, whatever, man. Like, I got this. And maybe there's a Lynn promo, but it's not to the effect of what we're used to seeing with, like, the storytelling from that point of view. That wasn't their strong suit. Some guys were really good at that from ECW. Unfortunately, I don't think you get that from Lynn and Van Dam, especially during that time.
I gotcha. So I think that's maybe what the disconnect for me was, because again, I like the drama. I like the storytelling and all that stuff, because it's hard for me to go back and watch something if I don't know the story. But when the story's told in the ring, like the last 2 episodes that I had here for the podcast, it's so easy for me to get into it, because the last 2 episodes that I did were all in Japanese, and I was like, I don't know what the hell the commentators are saying, but I'm so into this because their energy is there. Yeah. But thank you so much for your time, Gustavo. Truly, thank you so much. We've been talking a little bit over an hour now, so it's been a fantastic conversation. Now, to wrap this up, I think I forgot it once, but I like to ask people what they what they rate the match in their own little personal scale and everything. So eventually, I'm hoping to get to the point where it's like we want to watch slop and we want to like talk about it. But I feel I know what the rating for this one's gonna be. So hit us with it. What do you think?
So if I'm looking it through the lens of like 11-year-old Gustavo, this one's a 5-star for me. I'd say because my true 5-star and I don't think this match overlays and beats that one. I'm gonna give it a 4.
Okay.
I'm gonna give this one a generous 4, just because of what it means to be the nostalgia of it and maybe the impact of it had for that company and maybe the wrestling space back in 1999. I don't think it's perfect, but it motivates me and inspires me still even to this day, I think. So I think 4 is a generous star rating to give it.
There we go. We have our first 4-star rating here for the Miss Retrospective. But Gustavo, thank you so much again for joining us. Is there anything that you would like to plug before we get out of here?
No, I mean just reality of wrestling. Find it on the socials, and maybe I'll have some kind of input in a thing here or there, and or just watch wrestling. Watch all wrestling from now to back then. It doesn't matter. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Yeah, watch more wrestling, whatever
Heck
it is.
Yeah. All righty. Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining us here on the Miss Retrospective. We're going to go ahead and get out of here, guys. We will see you next time. Make sure to follow at Miss Retrospective on Instagram and drop all your suggestions at missretrospective@gmail.com. See you next time.